So good morning. I'm Vanessa Cordero. I support our global partner migrations team, and we also lead the partner component of the Migration Acceleration Program. My team also supports a number of our other scalable go-to-market investments, such as Market Development Fund, Innovation Sandbox, Proof of Concept, and then how many of you were in the room that saw Ruba's highlight of customer engagement incentive? Yeah? Wonderful.
Cool.
Nick?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Nick O'Brien. I've been working with Vanessa for about 6 years now. We're both in the partner organization. Vanessa's all about designing our programs for our partners, and my job is to sort of make sure that we're running them effectively throughout the world. So we've been working together on this for a long time now, and this whole session is really just about sharing some of our practices and observations that we've seen about partners that are working and sort of like how they're sort of like implementing it and making it help them grow their businesses. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Next. All right, so we just want to get to know a little bit of the folks in the room here. So as Nick mentioned, we've been with AWS, I'll be 6 years in February. And so how many partners here have been actually working since the APN started, like over 10 years ago? Wow, thank you. You need a red badge. How many partners have been here since MAP launched in 2016? What about when Partner Map launched in 2020? Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, and we've got a couple of other questions. We're also interested in your positions in the company. So let's start with the bosses. Have we got any sort of founders, executive directors? There's a few. Yeah, excellent. Oh, great. So yeah, we're trying to just understand this as we present our content, make sure that it's tuned in to you as audience. What about people in the sales side, sales, business development? Got some people here. Just see them. We've got bright lights in front of us. And what about on the delivery side, where the rubber hits the road? We've got people, anyone from the delivery side? Excellent. We've got some people there. Yeah, the things that make it all happen. Okay, awesome. So last question from Vanessa.
And then lastly, we really want to understand kind of what is your cloud migration expertise? So how many people in here have done more than 10 large migration projects? Raise your hand.
Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
What about anywhere between 5 to 9? Who's done one? 0? Actually, no one's 0 then. Wonderful. Everyone's done a large migration. Well,
so
thank you.
We've got an advanced audience today, so brilliant. Well, thank you for all your hard work. Let's move on to the agenda then.
Yeah, so the agenda today, we have 4 different topics. So the first one, at AWS, like you can look at this, like we talk about flywheels and creating mechanisms. So we want to be intentional about what we do to be able to help support you build a migration and modernization practice with AWS. So Nick will talk through that one next. And then the second thing is that once you've built your migration and modernization practice with AWS, like what are the benefits? There'll be a number of things that we also want to talk about and how it aligns to the AWS Partner Experience Transformation. And then today is the announcement of the AWS Migration Acceleration Program. There's some changes that are going to be coming in 2024, more so the mid-2024. There's some details we're going to be able to share today, but there's going to be some follow-on webinars where we'll share specific numbers, just kind of based on the audience. And then the last one is Nick will close out being able to share some of the best practices with you all.
Yeah, definitely. So just talking about flywheels or mechanisms, if any of you have spent any time like talking, listening to, Amazon and our culture, that's absolutely, something that we spend a lot of time thinking about. And we also know that like a lot of our partners, what they fundamentally want is a repeatable business, which is driving like profitable opportunities and something that they can scale up. And, our job is in the partner organization, it's essential for us to sort of find ways in which we can share with you things that we think will help you in that sort of pursuit. So I just wanted to sort of put this slide together. I'm going to build it all out because it does loads of builds. And, I sort of see this as like the holy grail for a partner to be able to sort of like bring all of this together. And I was sort of thinking about, the sort of like the first part around go-to-market. And I'm sure everyone's been in the expo hall over the last couple of days. And as I was walking around there, I was thinking that old expression about, I think it was Arnold Palmer. There's a golfing fan here, you can correct me, where he says, I'm a lucky golfer. He says, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. And it made me think when I was walking around the room is that there are some lucky golfers in here, right? And I was walking past one stand, and I just thought the amount of effort that they have put into getting this engagement right is phenomenal. And it just talks to like the details that people have to follow to actually get that engagement level. They were about 10 deep. It was like absolutely mobbed, these stands. And I walked past it, and the first thing I saw was some like catchy eye-catching toys that they were giving away. And the minute I sort of like looked away, someone caught my eye and said, do you want to win that? It was like immediate. And then the second thing I said is, how? And they said, there's a raffle. And she puts a raffle ticket in my hand. And then I say, well, when's the draw? She says, in 8 minutes. I can hang around for 8 minutes, I'm thinking. What do I do in the 8 minutes time? There's somebody telling me a whole load of content. My badge is scanned, and I'm listening to that content straight away. And then that is just where it begins, right? Because, that might be successful in capturing people's, getting their imagination, telling them about their value proposition, really punchy. But I'm thinking about all the effort that goes into making that happen. Then there's a whole load of more work that needs to be done about following up with those leads, nurturing them, passing them on to sales teams. There's a huge amount of integration. And I think that's the one thing that really stands out with our partners is how they are building that entire mechanism within their businesses to sort of like drive successful growth. The lucky golfers. And what I wanted to do today, I could spend a lot of time on this slide because I think you can unpack it and there's so much rich detail in there. But really what we're saying is that, we want to help our partners with that ideation, with finding those angles, those really interesting angles that captures customers' imaginations and helps sort of triggering conversations. We want to build that into our programs so then people can then sort of like use some of our financial support to help take those conversations to the next level, land your brilliant delivery people into accounts and get them sort of working on real projects and things like that. And then, of course, as we convert as well from grabbing people's attention, we've got to build that sort of like data level. So we've got to start using our tools like ACE, and if you're familiar with there's quite a lot of experienced people in the room, like APFP, if you're using us for funding. What we see there is like some of our partners, again, they're lucky golfers. They get approvals real quick, and they get real quick because they've got people in their organization that are getting all of those details right, and we just look at it, and we've got nothing to object to, and we want to approve and get them up and running. So there's so much there in the co-sale. That helps with the winning. We've got loads of assets that we want to share with our partners about which can help you be successful in the winning part of closing deals. And then it gives you these more projects which sort of like take you into new areas. I told you I could talk for an hour on this one. I was lucky enough to be invited to sit on a panel about a month ago with a partner and a customer in London. And I was absolutely amazed. The customer was word perfect about our programs, and the partner was exactly the same. And I just thought they were so happy to sort of tell their story and how sort of like effortless it had felt to them. And I just felt because they put so much effort in sort of like understanding it, speaking in a common language. So it's like, really impressive to me to sort of see that all of this hard work that goes on behind the scenes manifests itself in really great customer experiences. And I'm going to talk, like Vanessa said right at the end, about some of those sort of like individual examples, but I know a huge effort goes in to build these value propositions and these sort of like flywheel cycles. And that is what we see. Our most successful partners have done brilliant work in this area. So, we really want to talk and share with you like the practices that we see that makes a difference. But before I do that, there's a question for you, Vanessa, which is for some of the partners that are just beginning their migration journey, what is the market looking like? Or is it too late, or is there still lots to go after?
The game is not yet over. So if you could help advance to the next slide. So we've done thousands of migrations to AWS. Actually, you've done thousands of migrations to AWS. And so what we understand, we're only at the tip of the iceberg. Really, IDC states that by 2027, there's going to be a $1.3 trillion opportunity as customers are moving to the public cloud. And so, and there's originally, we might have started with infrastructure as a service, but you are helping our customers actually move from being an ISV to a software as a service company built on AWS, and that is a huge market. 52% of the move to public cloud is actually customers becoming SaaS companies while running in the public cloud. And then also, there's a platform as a service that's 23% of that opportunity.
Awesome. And just what about the profile of buyers? How's that changing?
Yeah, so you'll hear this term, which is like buyers are looking for different business outcomes. And buyers really need partners with a strong delivery capability. So one, we've seen in the pandemic that there was a huge amount of growth in terms of the budget that was spent in the public cloud. And even with some of, I think right now, don't quote me, I'm not an economist, but I see some of that transition happening from where there was the macroeconomic environment, and we're seeing a shift in terms of, again, renewed growth. But I'm curious here, as a former engagement manager, how many of you here have ever had a project that was behind plan? Anyone? Yeah? Hopefully it was like, if you've never had a project behind plan, please come and meet me afterwards. I will go and buy you a drink. But like 38% of projects are behind plan. And then what actually is astounding to me, and I can't believe this, 75% of cloud migration projects are actually over budget. And so what customers are looking for is like, how do you help me move to the cloud where I can stay on plan and then also on budget? And I think where we are today, kind of having been here for over 6 years at AWS, like the tooling that we have in place, either through AWS tools, as well as our migration competency software partner tools, and in the future, the Gen AI tools, that's going to be amazing.
So the other question that we get quite a lot from partners is, okay, we can understand about ARR, annual run rate, and how that can be good for ourselves in AWS. But what research have we done when it comes to what are the benefits from our partners and where do they make their money?
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about what are the benefits to being an AWS migration and modernization partner. So how many of you here were at reInvent last year? Oh, wonderful. Thank you for coming back. So there was a Canalys study that was done last year that interviewed a number of our partners and said, for $1 of AWS revenue, you can earn 6.4 in terms of your own profitable spending. And actually, a majority of that is going to be related to migrations, and actually related to migrations in the earlier phase. So you are helping customers you're advising with our customers, you're acting as that consulting partner, trusted advisor, you're helping to design what does the future look like. I mean, I've been hearing with a number of partners this week, and every single customer, as an example, is testing Gen AI, and they want you to be the ones to tell them, like, what is this going to be looking like in the future? We're all kind of learning together. And then you're also going to be building this for customers. You're the one that's moving the customers over and helping them modernize and transform as part of the cloud.
Cool. And something else that we get asked a lot, and I should just level set with all of you, is everyone familiar with MAP as a program? Is there anybody here who isn't familiar?
Who doesn't know about MAP?
Okay, cool. So Migration Acceleration Program, MAP program, that's effectively been our technique for the last few years to put a great big funnel over our organization and then bring anything that we think is going to be useful for our partners and bring it down to them and try and bring that in a concise way. We have worked pretty hard, and we have a ProServe division as well that have worked in terms of like improving the methodology. There is so much really high caliber resources in there. If anybody has been familiar with the migration readiness assessment, I've run a few like over the years, and I found them really engaging exercises with customers. They really help do that sort of like preparatory work, and it's a sort of resource which sits within our methodology that really helps sort of like understand and de-risk projects. And it's just like one example of loads of different tools that we have that are available to partners that we kind of like bring down and make it, to sort of like eliminate a lot of the work that you might have to do to sort of like get your practices up and running. So loads to explore in that area if you're new to it. Obviously, we do loads around software tooling. You're probably familiar with migration evaluation evaluator. We've got a lot of other different tools as well. And that, again, is just to try and, like, speed things up with our customers, take a bit of risk out of it, improve, like, quality, and make decisions with data. We have an abundance of certification and training. We like to pull all that together for our partners in particular. We want a framework which just allows you to do self-study, some sort of like FaceTime study, formal tuition as well. So a lot of bring you up to speed in like all areas of migrations. MAP is mostly associated with funding. It is a very rich program when it comes financially. We know that if we eliminate the costs as much as we can from our customers, then it moves away from being a conversation about trying to sell them a project rather than actually trying to convince them to make a change and then start using the benefits of sort of like moving on to cloud. And that's been like absolutely a catalyst for us in terms of sort of like engaging with partners and sort of like moving our business. And finally, topically, there's a lot more stuff around sustainability, and we're trying to build that as well into our program and give you resources that you can use and enrich your conversations with partners. So that's what I mean about a funnel. There's a lot of different subject matters. We pull it all together. We put that all under the Migration Acceleration Program. We benchmark our customers quite regularly on some of like the key things about why they should move to the cloud, whether that's about resilience, cost savings, various different like business agility and things like that. And we see like good results when our customers move to the cloud, but when they move with MAP, it is magnified so much more. So we know that programmatic structure is really helping our customers actually like move with confidence and realize their business outcomes. So that's really what Migration Acceleration Program is. It sounds like you're all really familiar with it. I sometimes think that too much attention's on the funding because there's so many other rich resources also available for partners there. But we're evolving.
Yes. I mean, we're evolving, like, just kind of, you mentioned it's a program, right? So there's a number of different areas that we want to be able to evolve. We want to be able to allow us for scale, and we're going to be, Nick is going to be sharing next, I think, right? We'll be sharing some of the details related to that evolution. I think this is...
I will do this one. Yeah, of course. So obviously, Vanessa and I have been here for a while, and we launched the program right in the very beginning, in the last couple of months of 2016. And 2016, we had a very small number of partners. We wanted to sort of like expand that so we could have greater coverage and customer choice in all these different regions around the world. And our original model with the Migration Acceleration Program is that we would provide financial resources. We'd make that available when customers were committing through PPAs. That proved like quite difficult in a way because it's like the customers on the edge of making a big decision. They've got to go for a project. They may not have had much experience, and they were making a commitment. So it was how we worked, and it certainly grew. And it grew over the first few years. We had a lot of bold customers, and they were like our lighthouses happening all over the world. But really, when Vanessa sort of made the changes around MAP 2.0, that's where we really hit the acceleration. So we've been extremely fortunate in terms of like the way that partner migrations in particular have grown since we introduced in 2020 some changes. If you're not familiar with what those changes are, they're predominantly about the fact that we didn't just say you have to sign a PPA, which is a commercial agreement over a number of years. You could also have it through credits, so we could get some financial benefits coming through credits as they migrated. And we introduced, most importantly, some partner cash elements. And that made the program really interesting to our partner community. They could have some investments up front, which would help them run assesses, help them build business cases, start to sort of like build their relationships with new customers. And then we would like move into like the mobilize phase, where again, they could use some of like, the assets that we had, and we would be financially supporting those changes. And we could see that customers were more willing to do that because we were taking away some of those initial costs in the P&L for that particular year. And really what that had fueled for us, and it's been like, great experience to see, is that like, our partners had exceptional growth. They're expanding rapidly, they're expanding their sales teams, their delivery functions as well. We were loving the fact that loads more companies were then applying for the migration competency. I think I'm safe in saying it's the largest competency. So
yeah, maybe behind.
So I mean, but again, it was a demonstration of the maturity of our partner network that they had. Like, they've been validated through that experience, and we were getting, huge coverage around the world from that. And if you've been through that process and you've been, with us along that way, we really appreciate the steps that you've taken with us. And we've also seen like this whole area of specialization really improve. We've got lots of different angles and areas to get into customer accounts are sort of specialist workloads or those enterprise applications. And we saw, huge organizations really develop their skills in that area. And likewise, we've sort of seen this expansion of ISVs bringing sort of like tooling and helping to improve the process as well. So there's been some great things that have happened in this sort of like, 3 years. And I've got some quotes on this slide, and maybe you can read all of those. But they're really rewarding to us to see our partners talking and giving testimony about the things that they've been able to achieve with our program. We love the fact All Cloud telling us about the speed of their conversion rate. We know when you put your energies with us into your sales cycles, you put the trust that your customers have with you, and you're taking them along this journey. We're really pleased that you have high conversion rates, and we love it when we see that our customers are saving money by moving to us. Some of the complexity on the second quote, really talks about how they can use some of the assets and help them deliver with confidence. There's nothing that we like to read more than seeing our partners growing 280% year over year. That is staggering growth, and that's great for people's careers. It's great for our partners, for the equity that they have in the business. And when we get compliments from Cloud Comrade at the end about saying how useful it is as a program in the channel, we're delighted to hear that too. So we've had some really nice feedback. And the culmination, as Vanessa was saying, is that has translated into a lot of business for us combined. And we definitely want to take this opportunity to just say thank you. Thank you for your commitment and working with that. We saw those wave of hands of people who've done 5, 10+ deals, and it is really appreciated.
All right.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, this is an evolution. We've done thousands of migrations to AWS, and there's an opportunity for us, one, to really be able to scale. So why are we making these changes? We advance to that.
Of course.
This one's one of those build ones. Yeah, so we're scaling MAP to be able to support every migration with a partner. And actually, earlier this year, Matt Garman said, make sure that we win every migration. So we're looking to each of you. As part of the new program changes, we'll be able to have that. 2, we're going to accelerate customer success. So our scalable proxy to be able to determine if a customer is successful is actually to be able to use revenue growth as a proxy for understanding, have they migrated over, are they realizing the innovation on AWS? 3, we're addressing partner feedback to help to simplify the funding approval process. I've met with, I think, like over 100 partners this year and received feedback of how complex, inconsistent some of the changes, some of the approval processes. So we'll be addressing that as part of the 2024 changes. 4, we're also addressing partner feedback that, for our mobilized funding today, it actually caps. And so in the future, we'll be able to have a mobilized funding that will be able to scale. And then 5, we're going to be introducing strategic partner incentives aligned to the different strategic priorities where you are critical in being our scale, our customer success arm.
Oh, I've gone too far. Let's rewind that. So, we want to share more and more details with you. The first thing I would just say about this slide is, in terms of being armed and dangerous in the world of AWS, we're trying to consolidate all of the different options that are available commercially just to one slide. So you can, if you understand this, you can basically understand how we support on deals from like $1 up to $10 million. So there's like, so it really is the lion's share of our business, right? And as Vanessa was saying, we are really keen to preserve, assess. What we find is that it's a really nice link from like marketing and early sales engagements as a call to action to bring people there. So we're making money available for that activity. And again, in terms of mobilizing, we're retaining like our investments there, and we're making that available for larger deals, as Vanessa was referring to as well. Credits is another way, which is super important just for sort of like eliminating some of the costs that our customers incur early and can put them off migrating. So we're sort of making some changes there. And then, as we've already talked about, two other things, strategic incentives around modernization. We want you to really push yourselves and design highly modernized solutions for our customers. Our customers love them. The technical people in the room want to sort of persuade customers to go down that route, and we want to encourage that as well. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to find greenfield customers. It's important for us to help us grow, but we know that our partners love getting into new accounts as well and really opening those up. So we want to find, and we know if they haven't done anything, then they need a little bit of financial support. So we're going to be adding some more money onto that. And there's also some extra incentives as well, because some of the workloads like SAP, databases, they're ones we really want to win. So we want to bring them ones over as well. So you're going to get more and more information about what the numbers are on that. This is about as far, unfortunately, as we're allowed to share in this forum. But effectively, what I hope our partners are reading when they see this is AWS trying to say to our customers, use partners. That's what hopefully you'll see in this message. There are some options that customers can go alone, but really if they want to open up, to get the best benefits of working with AWS, they engage yourselves. That's super important for us, and hopefully you'll see that on the slides.
Yeah, and really, we are over-investing compared to what we have today, and you are so critical to our strategy. So, as an example, we want you to help us win tomorrow's customer. They're not on AWS yet today, and you'll see that as we're looking across the portfolio of investments, right? Earlier this year, my team helped to launch the Customer Engagement Incentive. As part of MAP now, we're going to be introducing the additional incentive for greenfield customers. So we need your support to help us win SMB greenfield, ISV greenfield, enterprise greenfield customers. So, and working very closely with our account teams to be able to do so. And even in some areas, it's amazing, we're doing a partner-first approach to being able to go after these customers.
We also want to encourage modernization.
Yeah, so one-step modernization is actually really important. And actually, we were talking with our migration business development team earlier today, and he had shared, actually partner feedback is that, if you do the lift and shift and the customer is going to do the modernization next, it's actually a second sales cycle for you. It's a longer lead time. And so what we want to do is we want to invest in the one-step modernization. So how does the customer modernize as part of the migration? And so who here knows the 6 modernization pathways, or who? Oh,
yeah, we got some.
There's actually a majority of you haven't heard of this. So there is 6 modernization pathways, and there's so much more detail that our partner solution architect team can share as well. And so it's move to cloud native, move to containers, move to manage database, move to open source, move to manage analytics, and then move to modern DevOps. And actually, as part of every single one of these pathways, there are specific services. So we can share all of that with you. And if you attend, I think there might be a session still tomorrow. And their sessions will be available on replays where we go deep into each of these different modernization pathways.
And it's worth saying, isn't it? Because in the background for the last few months, we've been doing all this modeling around the financials and things like that. And first things first is that you guys are doing a lot of modernization already. Okay, we see that, right? You can see it in the stats. But we do see there's big more opportunities, and we really want to encourage our customers to think, okay, I could get some extra access to some financial support to make those changes now. So we want to encourage them to be thinking, immediately about making those changes. And there's definitely areas, move to managed database, that's probably one of the strongest ones. Open source, we can do a lot more there, right? And we really want to encourage you to be doing a lot more there. There's a lot of Windows stuff that comes over, and we'd love to see a little bit more open source there where our customers can save some money.
So as I mentioned, we've done thousands of migrations to AWS, and this is why customers migrate. During some of the macroeconomic headwinds that we had, customers are still focused on cost savings, and that is a huge driver for them to be able to move to the AWS Cloud. But there's a number of different other areas, and specifically we wanted to focus on AI and ML. So if you advance next, in every single keynote today, everything is around generative AI. And so,
should we move on? Shall I move on?
Yeah. And so one of the things we know is that generative AI is going to be able to transform industries, And I understand, like, as an example, in Adam's keynote, when he highlighted Amazon Q, I was like, for a customer to be able to say, hey, what's my migration strategy? Like, am I going to modernize? Like, which services? I think that's going to help actually probably both the delivery timeline for you, so you're able to have more and more projects. And so I think it's going to be a game changer for us. And we're going to be building the Gen AI into the modernization pathways. So we'll be sharing more details related to that. And then we'll help to keep you informed with us as we continue through the Gen AI journey.
Okay, so we talked earlier when we were talking about the flywheel about, behind it there are like thousands of techniques and decisions and, time and effort that's sort of like employed by partners to really make themselves stand out. So what I thought I'd do is I'd sort of try and consolidate some of my observations and sort of share those with you. And I've sort of like taken a few different themes. So I just kicking off with differentiation. So part of our program is that we want to help our partners get leads, right? We sometimes say that we're not doing enough of that. It's a part of our business that we definitely do. And if you want to talk to me about that a bit more than happy. We run loads of campaigns concurrently for our partners. And that does give us an ability to sort of like look across quite a large volume of partners. And, we build out digital ebooks. We put sort of like videos together. We help with first call decks. We kind of create a huge amount of templated material. And I read a lot of that, and I see quite a range, probably too broad a range. We see some stuff which I think is absolutely brilliant. It's extremely well written. It's like, really engaging content. It uses data really well. It's thought-provoking. It's something that you can see a huge amount of thought has been put together. And obviously that translates to the quality of reactions and responses that customers get. On the other side of the scale, I look at some other stuff and I think, this is very me too. So I think what I see within some partners that they've really put that effort in, and it was a little bit my lucky golfer talking about that earlier, is that, it pays off. Right, because then when we run these campaigns, we are generating like often hundreds and hundreds of leads for our partners, and the quality of those comes back to what is put in. So my message is there is like be really introspective about what it is in particular has been, incredibly valuable about your stories that you've done successfully in the past, and so and sometimes that's not easy, right? If you live in, if you work in very large partner organizations, maybe there's an offshore delivery center. It's not often easy to understand some of the precise challenges that some peoples have faced, but sort of like actually cycling that data and bringing those stories back into the marketing is like hugely valuable. The second thing that we see is about the superpower. So this is a sort of like quite difficult conversation sometimes because it never feels comfortable to be put in a pigeonhole. Right, that feels like something, it's like we would impose, and that's certainly not the culture that we have as a business. But what we do see is that those partners that are very clear about what they are good at, and then build a whole load of content and justification around that, are really successful, particularly at sort of like getting leads from us as a business. What I would say, like our MAP program, we have a lot of data. We look at a lot of data, and actually the balance of trade is a really important metric for us in terms of how much is coming in and how much is going out. And what we see is actually it's parity within our business. So by and large, the same volume of deals come one way as go out the other way. But it's not parity for every partner involved in the program. Some are hugely net beneficiaries, and some of those are not getting enough back from us. And what I see often is the ones that have got very clear identity around their superpowers that are attracting the most deals. They are excellent when it comes to designing a solution. Like when I listen to a partner describing how they're going to build an SAP environment on AWS, and they've got huge depth of knowledge about how they're going to design that, it comes across really compelling. And sometimes I'm in a situation where I see multiple partners bidding, and they don't have that specialization, and it just doesn't come across as strong. So, I think that is so important in our business. Hopefully you're taking it the right way. But, what we want to be really encourage you is to build out all those different competencies and superpowers in your business. And of course, back to our flywheel, really align that to your go-to-market strategies and bring those stories out into the full. That's what I would definitely encourage from a differentiation perspective. The other thing in terms of just like being like really successful, and again, we see a lot of our partners that want to go big with us in terms of transforming themselves as a partner organization. Maybe they come from telco or something like that, which is not naturally associated with cloud. That means a big change for their selling community. It needs dedicated sellers. It really needs executive commitment from the very, very top. And sales training, sales. I was a salesperson for most of my career, and we live off confidence, right? And some of us, we get our confidence by being trained and feeling really comfortable about what we're going to say. So that cannot be overlooked. The importance of having like really highly qualified people who are familiar and sort of understand like some of the programmatic aspects that I was referring earlier. And it also helps if their compensation is aligned. And that also can involve quite a bit of change. We talked earlier about AWS and about how we use our funding mechanisms. Some organizations, they're not necessarily able to pay commission to a seller because the money has come in from AWS rather than from the customer themselves. So there's these little things that they have to get right in order to get a team of people highly motivated. And like what we see is like all of these attributes is what they're building up. These lucky golfers, they're addressing all of these points and making sure that they're effective in the sales cycle.
Yeah, I do have a question. How many here are migration ambassadors? You can actually go into, if you don't know, you can go into the AWS Skill Builder. You'll get an accreditation that's called a Migration Ambassador. There's Migration Ambassador 2023. And what I hear that's effective too is like the VP of sales will say every single person in my organization, every salesperson needs to become a migration ambassador. So if you're not aware of that, AWS Skill Builder, Migration Ambassador, that's one great way to actually help build that selling muscle.
Yeah, and if I can praise Vanessa here on this one, right? Like, I think it was last year, Vanessa took a goal for someone like in her team to get 10,000 people through this sales ambassador to really encourage our partners to adopt that. I think we ended the year like 15,000. It was incredible how many people took it up. And like, again, we really appreciate the investment people make in putting that time together. I've got a few more. I've got like loads of stories. Sales effectiveness. Now, my first point here about cohesion and speed. So I can sort of flush this out with a short anecdote. But we realized that a partners organization is consistent. We talked about this a little bit about where you all came from, and there was like a really good spread. We had like leadership people in the room. We had people from sales, pre-sales, delivery, a real range of people. And in an engagement with a customer, all of those different actors come onto the stage. There's lots of different handoffs and people being involved. And what we know is that when that works well, when there is cohesion amongst all those people, things can fly. And I saw this with one of our partners where they started with a cold call. And I think they had the call on the Thursday, something like that. And this was the first time, new account, never met them before. And they go into that call, and they've got a clear idea of where they want to take the conversation. Okay, so they're prepped in advance. And what they want to do is they want to get that call to action to use our assess funding to get some of their consultants, their brilliant consultants, in that account running discovery in that customer. So this customer, I think it was in financial services, had about 4 data centers. It was a fairly big opportunity. But they had never worked with them before. So by the following week, they'd asked us for some money. We'd approved the money. Those people started on the ground, right? So that quick, 5 days, they're in there. They've gone from never speaking to this customer to signing off an engagement and getting working. Our partners like that. The second thing is that partners love is they don't like people leaving projects, right? If you're managing teams and you've got to sort of like manage those resources, the last thing you want to do is like not have the next piece of work lined up. So this same situation, same customer, inside 4 weeks, they'd done the entire assessment, quite a big estate, as I said, 4 different data centers. They'd run that, customer was engaged, customer was like interested in more. They were backing up all their discussions and solution designs with data, and they were designing like, how they could move on to AWS. They went straight, their feet never left the ground. They went straight into Mobilize, and they ran that for a few more months. I think about 6 or 7 months later, all 4 data centers running on AWS, and you just see how many different people in that partner organization have to work there. You had to have the finance people approving it. You had to have like the delivery people comfortable about the risk being involved. You had to have the pre-sales people know what to do. The sales people have got to be clear about that. So that's what I say, cohesion is speed, and it is so important, and I really encourage that. And reflect to yourselves about your organizations and whether you've got everybody sort of like in the same direction. That has helped enormously with centers of excellence. We see, like I say, I talked earlier about when we're investing in deals, that sometimes they just come in and they are perfect requests. That doesn't happen by accident, right? The stakeholders have been briefed, the documents that they have to submit are absolutely aligned, they've sent stuff through ACE. There is quite a bit of coordination for us to sort of like make that happen. And there are people in your organizations that are working on that and getting it absolutely right, and it does make a massive difference. Call to action, CTA, I think I talked about that already, but you can sort of see how that flows, right? And having the sellers being able to sort of like take a conversation in a particular way and then triggering a question, make a customer make a decision. Do you want to do this exercise with us? And the other thing that I really like is, I kind of alluded to it a little bit, points of entry. There's like 9 major areas that we've got, which we would say are different points of entry. We've got the enterprise applications, and we've got specialists, I'm sure in the room, around SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and one more. And we've got 5 workload specializations, again, which can be mainframe, can be Connect, there's end user computing. So having different angles in which you can sort of like try and approach a customer, these 9 are the ones that are, in our experience, the most effective.
And it ties back to the differentiation, right? Like you should actually have a differentiated practice working not just with the migration competency, but all of those different workload competencies, industry competencies.
Yeah. Some of the other things I love spending time seeing our partners in front of customers. It's like a real joy for me. And you just see how customers lean in when the content and the stories are there. People want to know, how do you move an Exadata database onto AWS? A thorny question like that. And when you've got somebody in the room who has done that story and brings that all to life and sort of like has that authenticity, has that, the scars from those exercises, again, I'm not underestimating. That is not easy to do, to bring those stories from large organizations directly in front of customers, but it does make a big difference. And the other one that I like, and I've seen this with partners as well, is sometimes they'll say, like, here's your RFP. You've got to do this. You've got to move this environment onto AWS, and then there'll be a number of people bidding. And some of our partners sort of like go beyond that, and I think that's really impressive. They'll say, like, okay, I can tell you, here's your answer to the question, but here's our thoughts about what you could do now that your data's on the platform. And they start talking a story about, what the customer's priorities are. They'll do some research on the customer, and then they'll sort of say, yeah, and then you could use this to then integrate that to improve your customer experience, for instance, in call centers and things like that. So they go beyond the exam question. And I think I touched on this a little bit when I talked about that sort of SAP example earlier about the art of solutioning. It is just such a skill. For those of you that are in the room, I take my hats off to you in terms of like designing really compelling solutions, anticipating the sorts of questions that customers have, giving them different options and talking about, how they can sort of like move to AWS. To me, it is like often the crunch thing in terms of winning business, is having that absolute rapport with a customer, and I just don't think you can understate that. And the last point on this one, I don't know how many more I've got, but empowering customers is my last point. And this is one of the things as well that I can see the reaction of customers when partners behave in a certain way. And what I mean by that is customers, they want to come on this journey with the cloud. A few I see want it all done for them. Like, most people want to see this as an opportunity for them to develop their own career, develop their own sets of skills as well. So so our partners that like adopt this stance where they say, look, we want to help you do this. We want to sort of like be able to leave you and be able to sort of like complete this. We want to sort of like empower you to do that. I notice that really gets the right traction. That's my observation with certain types of customers. So finally, program expertise. I did actually have this written down, Ambassador Badge. Yeah, it's a big plug. The relationship between your sellers and our sellers can make the difference. And when they're talking in a common language, they are clear between each other, that is really effective. And the technique to simply just like, get some education about the program, understand how the commercial constructs work in particular, to be able to sort of like speak about that confidently from the sales perspective and engage with our account teams. There's probably a lot of partners in the room that think we know more than AWS often about the program, and that is definitely true. But the technique to do it is often through things like the Ambassador's Badge, and I'd really encourage that as well. And we only gave you a little bit of an insight into what the new commercial model looks like. But you can see there's lots of different angles there. There's lots of different levers. It does pay to really get, understand that well. And we do make quite a lot of changes. We do introduce things quite regularly. And just being familiar with those program updates, Vanessa's team run a lot of partner casts. And they are really helpful ways of just being able to either do it on demand or live to sort of to understand what's changing in the program. So we're really encouraging you, hopefully, to sort of use the incentives that we've got. I feel like I've talked too much. Do you want to take on for a bit?
So if you want to hear me again, actually, we'll be hosting a number of partner webinars over the next couple of weeks and then over the next several months, really to talk about the evolution of the program again in terms of how we're simplifying and improving the partner experience, how we're changing some of our investments to really help us scale. So I'm hoping you're going to join me where I can share more details than I could share today in terms of what some of the changes are. And that'll be starting December 4th, December 5th, 11th, and 12th. If you don't have, you can reach out to your partner development manager, and you can reach out to Nick and I, and we can share the additional details. Secondly, there's also going to be training that's available as part of AWS, the partner funding portal, Partner Central. And so we know that it's critical to really help create speed and help improve the deal velocity. So again, as part of the program changes that we're going to make, we're going to be making some significant changes to APFP, or the AWS Partner Funding Portal, so that you'll be able to help improve the deal velocity. So there'll be more training related to that as well. And then, if you're still not tired of us, please join us in future roadshows. So we'll be doing a number of roadshows. We're starting in North America. We'll do roadshows in EMEA, LATAM, as well as APJ. So we have our partner migration program leads. We have our migration partner solution architects that will be in every geo hosting these different roadshows. And then lastly, really the source of truth for everything related to the programs is in the program guide. And so, I don't know, has everyone seen a preview or seen some of the changes that have come through within Partner Central? There's a whole new user experience to be able to review content, be enabled in Partner Central. I hope you're as excited as we were to be able to launch that. And so the program guide, as part of next year, please make sure that's kind of your source of truth to be able to help understand all of the different incentives and investments that we have. And with that.
Awesome. We finished a little bit early.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.